Sorry, let me just finish it. It's also contentious that Facebook allowed them.
I'm about to correct him so he doesn't like it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm happy for you to correct me. I was just in the middle of saying something. If it's quite all right, I'll just follow through. Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. I'm joined this week as ever by Jamie Davis, but as a pleasant change from Ian Morris, we're getting his colleague Ray from Light Reading.
You know he's going to watch this, right?
Yeah, he's going to like that.
Yeah.
No, actually he won't.
Oh, that's true.
Cool. Okay, and just as a little reminder that if you're listening to this on SoundCloud or iTunes, you can watch it on the site or Facebook, and vice versa. If you're watching it, you can listen to it on SoundCloud or iTunes. So this week, what's been going on this week? I think we've got to talk about Cambridge Analytica, which has been the sort of big story, not just in tech and stuff, but also just on the front pages. We're also going to talk a bit about the 5G puzzle. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Vodafone's mea culpa. So starting off with Cambridge Analytica, I think I'll just do a little summary of what the news is, and then we'll throw it out there. The Guardian, New York Times, and to a lesser extent Channel 4 did an expose of a company called Cambridge Analytica that got hold of a bunch of data indirectly from Facebook a few years ago. And then apparently that was then used by the Donald Trump presidential campaign to influence voters. And basically this story has two distinct forks. There's the data privacy part, which I think is the most interesting, especially to our audience, i.e. we're giving all this data to Facebook, and also obviously other big internet companies like Google and so on. And what the hell are they doing with it? You know, are they just utterly exploiting us? Are they just sort of flogging it onto whoever? And are they doing it for whatever? Do we have any control whatsoever over our digital identities, which I think is a really interesting topic. And then the other one is the sort of election influencing, which I find a sort of more tenuous topic, because I think people have been using whatever communication and demographic technology they can to try and influence elections forever, and this is just the latest one.
It's just marketing, isn't it?
No, but I do disagree. Like, at least when you have marketing and advertising, it's in your face. You watch an advert on TV.
No, but you're confusing the form with the medium there. It's in your face, but so was the messaging around the.
But the way
vote this or this person's bad.
The way in which the information had been secured was a bit.
Well, how is information
suspect.
for advertising secured?
But it is. Okay. But at least when you contribute, in the majority of the time, you know about that you are actually contributing. I think the big thing about the Cambridge Analytica stuff is that people knew that they were contributing, but it was the information about your contact list. So they were indirectly taking information from the rest of the sphere and then using that information. So there was no process of collection. Like, you wouldn't know about it, whereas if you were contributing to a survey, you would know about it.
Is it in the terms and conditions that that's allowed?
No, but it was a violation of terms and conditions. That was the...
That really is the point.
Yeah.
But I still think they're two distinct points, because I agree with Jamie. The way in which this information was collected, especially the information of the friends of the people who filled in the survey.
It's very sneaky.
It's sneaky. And it also was, at that particular time, acquiring that secondary information wasn't against Facebook's terms and conditions. And they then found out about it and went, oh my God, and they changed it subsequently. The thing that was contentious about how that information was disseminated in terms of this story was that this guy, this Cambridge researcher, not Cambridge Analytica, but a Cambridge University researcher, got hold of all this data and then allegedly passed it on to Cambridge Analytica. That was the really contentious bit. But you're quite right. It's also contentious. Sorry, let me just finish it. It's also contentious that Facebook allowed them.
I'm about to correct him so he doesn't like it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm happy for you to correct me. I was just in the middle of saying something. If it's quite all right, I'll just follow through. The way in which they allowed it to be collected at the time, they've subsequently realised is dodgy, and so they're getting done on two separate points: the privacy of that data and the terms and conditions they had at the time.
But there was I mean, I get it. I mean, it was only like to remove the allegedly thing. I mean, they have said.
I know. I was just being a journalist sitting on the fence, trying not to get myself in.
But it's one thing they have admitted to, isn't it? So they turned around and said, yes, we did have that data from this Cambridge professor.
Right, okay, fair
which
enough.
is, the admission of fault is when they said Facebook auditors can come in and have a look
Right.
at our data, and then the government turned around and said, not
We'll,
yet.
we'll get in there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wrote that one up.
Hold
So
back.
I guess the other contentious thing, which I didn't cover in my very brief overview, is that Cambridge Analytica and this guy Daniel Kurgan or whatever his name is told Facebook that they deleted it all. At least this is what Facebook's claiming. There's a hell of a lot of it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. There's a lot of sort of passing the buck. Told Facebook that they deleted all this stuff, and then this investigation subsequently found out, or alleged, if I'm allowed to say that, that they didn't.
I mean,
So-
it's so stupid from Facebook. I mean, it's either they're outright lying and they didn't tell them to delete it,
Yeah.
or it's such gross negligence that they should be sued to high heavens anyway.
They probably
Because
will be.
what kind of organisation turns around and says, okay, so you've allegedly been using this data for,
Oh right, you can say it.
yeah, but this part is alleged.
it
For
better be.
the presidential campaigns, which hasn't been proved yet.
All right.
So,
I'll
but,
stand down for now.
I mean, are Facebook that gullible that they think that is the only circumstance that those tactics have been used? I mean, this is where, for me, Facebook's biggest mess up is that they
You're trying to find a non-swear word.
yeah,
to say, then, weren't you?
basically. That they assumed that this is the only case
Yeah.
of this information, this irresponsibly sourced information being used in an irresponsible manner. So that was 3 years ago. They should have put it into the public light and said they've got this company which is sourcing information irresponsibly and using it irresponsibly. The fact that they only thought that it happened on one occasion,
Or
is,
that's what they're publicly claiming.
yeah, is completely irresponsible and immature from Facebook.
Yeah, well, Ray, I'm with you on the marketing thing. I think if we just
I was just
distill it
throwing
down-
that in there. I mean, it's all well dodgy, but if you look at the overall scheme of things here, it's really just a digital world example of what's gone on
Yeah.
in the non-digital world before, where basically people try and extract information and make money out of other people's data or information or influence or anything like that, and get away with what they can, and then everybody massively tries to cover their back
Well,
ends.
I mean, without landing us in it, because we're lovely. But what is us media? What's our business model, if not to develop an audience and then attach some value to that audience? We do it completely above board. There's nothing shifty about it. Everyone knows what's going on. You get our content for free, get this podcast for free, but you might get some ads chucked at you.
It's,
But that's
it's
a
very
similar
obvious
model.
the way that
Yeah.
we
but in the
monetize
same way
them.
that if you're just on Facebook and you suddenly get fed an advert, you've become a parent recently, and all of a sudden, an advert for nappies or very strong alcohol appears, then you know that's been accurately
Or Grindr.
targeted. And the same on Amazon. You're buying a
that's
book,
the
and here are some other books you might be interested in.
Yeah.
This is going to a new realm. But anybody who thought this wouldn't happen, I mean, this is
I
always
think
going to happen.
I've got a little bit of sympathy for Facebook, and hear me out before you interrupt me here.
No, I do as well.
Because you look at the internet, and you go and when so this is something I wrote the other day. The internet is only 26 years old. We've only uncovered a fraction of what is possible online. So we're actually applying today's standards to something that happened 3 years ago. Now, 3 years ago, they were exploring the unexplored.
Yep.
So we have told Facebook that 3 years ago you crossed a line which you didn't know existed 3 years ago. So they redefined how people communicate with each other and how companies communicate with individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, because it's brand new, no one told them, or no one could tell them that it's wrong.
I think that, the big question ultimately is, was Facebook knowingly inept or just inept?
Yeah, but I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, and in the next 10, 20 years, when we explore new areas of the internet, new ways to communicate, and new technologies come through, people are going to overstep the line, but you don't know where the line exists until you overstep it. So,
especially if you're in virtual reality.
Yes. Well. So I've got a little bit of sympathy because they explored new
Everyone's
ideas.
kind of winging it a bit.
Yeah. I mean, you're making stuff up. I mean, it's like, imposing. It is imposing today's standards on 3 years ago when standards didn't exist 3 years ago.
Yeah, and they thought it might be cute to create this sort of network effect whereby you would have this, by getting access to one lot of people, you would get proxy access to another lot of people, and then you just get this social graph or whatever the hell they were smugly calling it a few years ago. But yeah, the flip side is that anyone with a little bit of initiative can suddenly get hold of data on an absolute ton of people. I'm still sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say, but at the time that was a great idea, and it's
it
only
seemed
now
like
we look back and say,
only once it's been abused as well.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. So yes, I mean they two good things I think are going to come out of this. One, a very well needed conversation about our ownership of our own personal data. So I've got Scott's data file that's in the cloud somewhere that says I'm into this and I'm not into that, and these are my demographics.
Yep.
This is where I live, all that sort of thing. Do I have any ownership of that whatsoever, or have I completely surrendered it to the internet giants? And I don't think it's even going to require regulation to that. I mean, Facebook's already in Zuckerberg's first post on the matter. He's like, I'm going to put these tools, I'm going to make them prominent, and you can do all sorts of stuff, and you can basically shut yourself off from the world if you want to, and all that sort of thing. And I think if everyone's got really easy control and they don't exercise it and they get exploited, I've only got a limited amount of sympathy for them.
See,
if they've got the control.
I do have a bit of sympathy because
Only a step further from have you read and understood all the terms and conditions that you said you
so
read
then
and
it depends
understood.
how easy and intuitive it is. If it's a massive legal document, I agree with you. That's just bull. No one reads those.
But I do have sympathy because we're giving the elements of control back to the consumer now, but they're never going to have control. So if you look at EU GDPR, it's all about the right to be deleted, the right to know about what information that company is doing, but it puts the onus on the user. So I have to go to Facebook and say, what are you doing with my data? What data do you actually have on me? And then I can request that it gets deleted so that they can't use me as an advertising metric.
Yeah.
But the idea of putting the control back into the consumer's hands is reliant on the idea that every consumer knows where their data is. And I've mentioned this a few times. How many apps have you downloaded, let's say, over the last 4 years?
Yeah, countless.
Hundreds.
And given them loads of blanket permissions because you can't be asked to.
Do you remember
second guess it?
Every single developer?
Of course not.
So
you're right.
Given away the information. So I've got a bit of sympathy that if you put these controls in now, but because they've got no idea about where their data is, and the industry has been so opaque and just sort of dodgy over the last 4 or 5 years, that you'll never have a control.
No, but you've got to start somewhere. I mean, you're completely right. I don't disagree with you, but you have to start somewhere. And Facebook's at least saying that we'll also let you know which other apps. I don't think I've done many of them. But some people obviously sign up for these apps, such as the app that harvested all this data in the first place, that do little personality tests. And, if you're in Star Wars, what character would you be? Random stuff like that.
Princess Leia.
You reckon? Is that me or you?
I'll let you decide.
I would say Jabba the Hutt.
I'm Jabba the Hutt. Have they got like a silly French character in Star Wars? Jabba the Frog.
What's that?
Anyway.
What's that stupid thing with the goggly eyes that can't talk properly?
Yeah, that one.
The Sun People or something.
No. It was like the really irritating one. That
Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson.
Oh, the one with the floppy ears.
I
hate
that.
Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks. There we go.
Yeah, you're
That's
that
me.
Pierre, so shut
Yeah,
up.
it can be Jar Jar
Actually,
Binks.
Jar Jar Binks was mapped after like an African American, and everyone was.
I know.
pissed
I
off
don't
about
think that was
yeah.
their finest PC move. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So the other point I wanted to make before we move on is the other thing. Good conversation.
Jar Jar Binks.
and casual xenophobia, which we lapse into all too easily.
We?
Yeah, you do as well, Ray. You're tarred by being, but you're part of our gang.
Haven't been able to bloody shut up about seaweed and potatoes today as
Yeah,
well.
you
So
know, these Jersey people. The other one is the conversation about politics and to what extent we can all be influenced by marketing, whether it's digital marketing or good old-fashioned have a rally and wave red, white and blue flags or whatever. And I agree with Ray that they're variations on the same underlying theme. And a lot of people have got quite anxious about that, and I'm not so sympathetic of that. I think we're all suggestible. Politics is just another type of marketing as far as I'm concerned, but you're selling ideas and you're selling candidates for power rather than products.
Yeah. But then the point there is, are you being influenced by lies?
Right. Well, almost certainly in the case of politicians, yes.
And dishonesty.
Totally. Well, that's politicians, isn't it? Point me to any that don't. I mean, I think they all do. People said Barack Obama, oh, he's a social media genius. So it's cool when he did it. Some of it just depends on which team you've picked. And obviously not many people in the public sphere have picked Team Trump. So he's an easy person to go, well, he must be horrid. I mean, I honestly think people are looking for some kind of mitigation, because there have been a couple of electoral things that have happened in the last few years that go so against the expectations of a lot of people that they're looking for some mitigation, whatever it is, and they'll cling to it like a life raft. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the personal data one definitely needs to get sorted out. The are politicians horrid one, well, duh, basically.
No, it's not are politicians horrid. It's are people being influenced in their political choices by misinformation and dishonesty?
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
definitely.
Right, yeah, that's just politics, full stop.
The
What was
bus,
the thing
the
that
Brexit bus.
Denzel Washington said?
Brexit bus.
He said, if you're...
Yeah, that's
Can we cut that bit out?
Yeah,
This is a good anecdote.
Yeah, a little note to
If you
self.
read
If
the
you're going to
news,
butt
you're
in,
misinformed, and if you don't,
you're ignorant.
uninformed or something.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like
Okay.
you can't win or something like that.
Well, there's that as well. So I don't think there's such an easy answer to that. Anyway, I think we sort of done that one. Ray, you've been mulling over the conundrum that is 5G.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, and I come to this, but it's kind of a little bit of a mini bandwagon for me anyway, and has been, so I might be repeating myself here, even though I've only been on the pod a few times. But, I think this is a particularly good time just after Mobile World Congress, where obviously, it was 5G for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and late night drinks.
Of which we had plenty.
Of which plenty were had by some people. And I think still there's a lot of talk and focus about, what will 5G be, what will 5G be, what will be the services, industrial IoT, how will it work, what latency do you need, etc., and not quite enough focus on the boring stuff, or not, maybe I call it boring, it's not boring, but the less sexy stuff that actually
even less sexy.
Is going to that's going to be needed to make any of this happen whatsoever, such as next generation intelligent optical infrastructure. And the reason I bring this up is because last week I was in San Diego at an event called OFC, which is like the annual get-together for the optical networking and optical technology community. And even there they were talking about 5G, but they were talking about 5G from the perspective that I think not enough people are talking about, which is what underlying, it's almost like the foundations of a house. What optical networking foundations do you need on which you can build the 5G capabilities? Because none of it's going to work unless you've got all the parts of the puzzle. And this is why I sort of said I want to talk about the 5G puzzle.
Yeah, sure.
Because you can have an amazing next generation radio access network that complies to the new 5G standards, completely and utterly pointless if you've got unless you've got all the other parts of the puzzle.
Backhaul and stuff.
And I don't think we even actually know what all those parts of the puzzle are yet.
We just need tons of fixed line capacity, isn't it? As simple as that.
It's not. That's part of it, but it's way more than that. You need loads and loads of fiber-based bandwidth, but that's intelligently handled by automated fulfillment processes, capabilities that can spot when an error or a break is going to happen rather than spotting once it's happened. There's all these things around the assurance and management of the underlying infrastructure before you even get to small cells and massive MIMO and millimetre wave.
Is that why we need more of it? Because presumably, presumably, I know that we already need a fair bit of assurance and all fail-safes and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but you're saying we need an order of magnitude more.
Absolutely, and it needs to be not the same old stuff. It needs to be the new stuff, the new controllers, the new orchestrators, the new cloud native probes, all of the kind of stuff that people might be talking about in little niches and little communities. But if you go to Mobile World Congress, then you come away thinking, wow, this 5G thing is going to be amazing. Yeah. You know, it's going to be virtual reality in my home, and I'm going to be getting, 100 gig to my earlobe.
Yeah, you talk to the prominent cheerleaders like Qualcomm or whatever. You know, their whole stand was just 5G.
Right.
That was it.
And that's an important part of it. But I think my point is you need all the pieces of the puzzle at the same time to make any of the kind of stuff that people are talking about a reality, whether it's industrial IoT or the 5G enabled smart home, driverless cars, etc. And I think we are, and there's certain things that some parts of the puzzle are pointless with that unless other parts of the puzzle have come first, and that intelligent optical infrastructure, not only long distance metro regional, but all the way to the very edge of the network, whether it be to small cells or base stations or street furniture, my favourite phrase for this year. Until you've got that, the rest of it is pointless.
We get a lot of street furniture in King's Cross when I'm walking to work.
That's right. So that's kind of this is going to be my 5G bugbear.
Yeah.
But we're not at the moment. The industry. I'm not saying that there aren't. I think some operators actually have figured this out, and they have been investing a lot. And there's a reason why companies like Corning, which makes fibre, why they cannot keep up with demand, because companies realise that they need more fibre in the ground with intelligent systems running the capacity and enabling the services over that fibre, because without it you can't really have cloud services, you can't have 5G services, you can hardly have 4G.
So we're getting the memo, and you're right, you have brought this up before, because I'm remembering a previous podcast
I'm just repeating myself,
where I think you'd been to Seville or something.
Well,
like
that's
that.
it. So that fibre,
I was trying to get you to talk about Marmalade.
Valencia.
the fibre access is the edge bit of it. But I'm going to carry on banging on about this because it's absolutely important. So the optical infrastructure and the analytics and the data and the ways to analyze, manage, and make sense of the data collected from the networks and services. You need all of that before you can even start doing anything more. I mean, so 5G services in terms of even faster wireless broadband, whether it's fixed wireless or mobile broadband, can be launched without some of these puzzle parts. But then it's just another standalone siloed service for which you can charge a few more dollars and you'll never get your money back if that's the only thing you do. So it's a much bigger economic investment and strategic and planning picture, I think, that maybe doesn't get that bigger picture about all of the parts of the puzzle doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah,
apart from bores like me.
Well, no, actually, it's not just you. Note, I didn't actually correct you for being a bore. No, it's not just you that talks about it. I don't know about you, Jamie. I've seen a sort of perhaps slight uptick in press releases from people. Certainly in the UK, we've got the government trying to ride on the coattails of fibre and going, look, I think we're about 3 government press releases in a row going, yeah, we've invested this much in fibre, this much in people coming up with bright ideas, all that sort of thing. We're seeing a lot of people...
We're investing £25 million in 6 startups. Do me a favour.
So you think it's just sort of token?
Yeah.
Right. So what do you need to see? You need to see billions being chucked about.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I answered that question, didn't it?
They've got billions of pounds. They're not putting it in the right place.
No, and of course, we all agree that it's in everyone's interest to have this infrastructure, not just for 5G, but just for everything. It's. I think we've all agreed in the past. It's a utility like water or electricity.
Don't build another road. Build the digital highway.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I think we're all fans of working from home here, when we don't have to come in and do a bloody podcast. So yeah, so I agree with you on that. And in terms of, you don't seem very optimistic that the memo has been got,
No.
or at least that people are acting
It'll sink
on
in slowly, but like everything, I think, some get it, some don't. Some will be like, seduced by this 5G idea, and they'll invest in some parts of the puzzle, and then they'll go, well, that bit's working, but why aren't I making any more money? And what happened? Where's the return on my 2 billion radio access infrastructure investment? Oh, that's right, because all I can do is some faster mobile broadband.
Or, as we discussed on the podcast last week with Ian, which you no doubt watched as soon as it was published,
Of course.
or listened to, just the capacity play and the efficiency play. We can just offer more, and it'll cost us a bit less per gigabyte to do it. But that's not very exciting, is it?
No, it isn't. It's not enough.
Yeah.
But that's the utility business model.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
they're
the
desperate
efficiency.
to avoid. Yeah.
And yet they're all saying, as we discussed last week, that that's probably the gig in the short term. So if they're desperate to avoid it, they're not doing a great job of it, are they?
Well, I think some people are just waking up to where they can play that role. And I'm not sure, for example, I think there's a very big argument in my mind for a traditional, mobile or telecoms operator to be able to offer the opportunity to manage not only the network that goes up to the edge of offices or people's homes, but a network that runs inside buildings and people's homes, but then not have to try and create the services and applications that run over it, just enable people then to choose the services and applications that run over that network. But that network inside the home as well needs to be working just as efficiently as the network outside of it, and vice versa. You need zero bottlenecks.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's a bottleneck frenzy. That's what we're looking at.
Bottleneck Fest.
Yeah, it's a good name for a band, that. Bottleneck Frenzy. Supported by Dan Jones's Carrots.
I was going to say Dan Jones's Carrots. Bit of a light reading in joke there.
Yeah.
And what about, so, like Jamie just touched on the sort of commoditization, the utility sort of model. What about, we know we've got these three pillars of the ideal 5G, where you've got the enhanced mobile broadband, but you've also got the low latency, critical sort of services type of thing, and then you've got the massive IoT thing. And we're going to have things like network slicing, which in principle, when done properly, will allow a provider to sort of prioritize each of these in quite a dynamic way. Do you think that is going to help them to move away from this commoditization trap and have a bit more sort of value add and start to move up the sort of value chain a little bit once more?
I think these are big picture, high level concepts. Even the slicing, and the slicing I'm not convinced about at the moment. There's been that all the steps about, like, if you introduce network slicing, how are you actually going to manage that outside of, like, if BT's doing it in the UK, and this is not to pick on BT, or I'm just using it as an example, if BT's doing it in the UK, it might be able to do network slicing in the UK. But if you're offering this capability to a large enterprise, let's say Shell in the oil industry, and Shell goes, I want that network slicing globally, forget about it.
Right. So a hell of a lot of this sort of stuff that makes for good PowerPoint is just a hell of a long way away.
It's where there's a lot of excitement about stuff that ain't going to work yet, not for a long time, not until lots more pieces of the puzzle have been put in place first.
And you're saying sort out the fixed line and the sort of network management side of it first.
Identify
it first.
Yeah, and I think that if you go to Mobile World Congress, I think you get a false impression, in the same way that you went to Mobile World Congress for years when 4G was coming up, and you'd be there for 3 days and hardly anybody would talk about the dull stuff around mobile backhaul, which again is the same, the transport, but that's where the bottleneck was. And that was if you just actually spoke to the mobile operators and said, where's your big problem with 4G, one of the major problems they had was sorting out synchronization in their backhaul networks that had enough capacity.
Right.
never talked about at Mobile World Congress. Maybe a half-hour session at the end of Thursday when everybody had gone home or was getting drunk. And
Or just passed out.
Meanwhile, people are falling over themselves because somebody'd put a 5-megapixel camera in a smartphone.
Yeah. Yeah, well, part of that is
That photo was going nowhere without any decent backhaul.
No, totally. I guess part of that, then you're sort of getting onto a more sort of PR and journalism thing, which is they're trying to catch our attention, and they think they're more likely to catch our attention with shiny things than they are boring old backhaul.
Well, it's not our attention; it's the attention of everybody in the industry.
Right. But I mean,
budget holders, marketing people at operators.
But we get a certain. I'm sure you have some great sort of behind the scenes chats when you're there as well. But we get a certain perspective by virtue of our profession, and I just wonder if we only get the more shiny stuff chucked at us.
Oh, for sure. You have to go digging for the more the less glamorous. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So sort of keep plugging away.
Keeping Jamie interested as usual.
Yeah. Well, we'll throw it.
How many cats on Instagram did you find there?
No, I executed my first cryptocurrency trade today. So I'm just having a look at it to see how it's getting on.
You got to be looking at
Really?
it for like hours of the day.
Tell us before we get on to the other stuff. Tell us what's going on there. What is this thing
Not
that
too
you
bad.
do?
I made £2. So
what, you can just get an app and just get involved?
yeah.
And is it just speculating? Just buy some Bitcoin type of thing? And
Yeah,
then-
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm playing with. I'm trying to understand what I'm actually doing first. So I'm playing with pretty low
Right.
values
And
of cash.
What made you want to get into this?
I just thought, why not?
Just
To be
check it
honest with you.
Do you do like online betting or anything like that? Is this something that you generally like to do?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But I just thought
That is online betting.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
But
yes,
was there a precedent?
there's
for this as well?
there's no history of it, but
Right.
it was. I just thought, bugger it,
slippery slope, mate.
have a look, see what's going on
You'll be
there.
down Ladbrokes every lunchtime.
Having lost all his money betting on the North Korean downhill skiing team at the Winter Olympics, he's now gone into cryptocurrency trading.
I thought they were a dead cert, said Davis. Well, though, having said that, if you say you won £2, if you put £2 in Bitcoin, like I don't know, 5 years ago, you wouldn't be in here right now, would you? You'd be on a beach.
I did buy Bitcoin years and years ago,
Oh, did you?
But obviously I sold it massively before the huge uptick.
It's got a chafe.
I did all right with it. No. So when I say cryptocurrency, I mean sort of going all the altcoin.
Okay. Do you know what I'm totally ignorant about? I don't even know what the difference is.
So
If it ends in coin, I figure it's all the same thing.
Make up some words now and tell him what you're doing.
So I bought on cryptocurrency a Bitcoin before, but this is the first time I'm going on to sort of like altcoin exchanges.
Right. Is that like alt-right? No, it's not.
Not quite there. No, it's So I'm just having a play around there, see what happens.
Fascinating. Well, I think we should have regular updates on the pod to see how your fortunes are going. When you come in covered in bling with a fur coat on, all that sort of.
He looks like a million zlotys.
There we are. But back to the day job. While you still need a day job, so I'm counting on you not cashing in too soon. You did an interview with the CEO of Vodafone this week, didn't you? Tell
Yes,
us a little bit
the
about
UK CEO.
that. Sorry, UK CEO.
No, it was quite a good one. So basically,
You bigged it up there.
Yeah.
I went in
this week.
I went in with so we got the 5G auction this week, and I approached their PR person.
The start of it, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, I want to have a good old chat with someone at Vodafone, and he said, okay, but we're not allowed to talk about 5G. And I was like, do you know what? Fantastic, because I think
Ray's got that covered, hasn't he?
yeah, but I think when you go in to speak to operators, especially from sort of like we're doing trade press, it's a bit of a cop-out to say, well, what are you actually investing in? What is the big strategy? And they go, oh, it's 5G. It's just an easy thing to say that isn't going to get anyone in trouble.
We're all about the 5G.
Yeah, you're not going to get any real answers out of anyone. So I thought this was it was actually a really good time that he wasn't allowed to talk about 5G, so he could actually talk about other aspects of the business, which I found quite interesting.
So, what's his name for people wondering who this person is?
Nick Jeffrey, sorry. So it's the Vodafone UK CEO,
Yeah.
and he just turned around and he was quite honest and quite open, and he just said, Vodafone over the last 15 years
Vodafone UK.
in the UK.
Vodafone, no. Vodafone Group has been one of the more successful. So started off in the UK,
Right.
and then went international.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the more successful UK businesses to enter the international markets.
Right.
But at the same time, the UK business, as the international prospects were growing, the UK business wasn't doing very well. And he said to me, the last 10 years, Vodafone UK has become gone into a state of disrepair, and
Right.
Suffered slippage.
yeah. But he was quite honest with it, and he just said, the last 2 years we've been doing some really, we've been looking at the basics of the business and actually trying to fix what Vodafone UK actually is.
With the help of Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, with Martin Freeman, that was one big. Well, the brands was one big part of it as well, because they just said everyone knows about Vodafone because we've done these massive sort of like campaigns, like international sponsorship, like of McLaren Formula One team. But he said, does anyone relate to it? If you said, what is the Vodafone brand any good? Most people just go, meh. I've heard of it, but I don't
just
think
there.
I don't
How many
think much
people are
about
recommending Vodafone
Yeah.
services to their friends or
Exactly.
family? Yeah.
What's their MPS?
it. So that's their MPS.
People don't
is
talk
actually-
about that so much now, do they?
That's it's really high at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
actually
well
really
done.
high. But it's stuff like Martin Freeman. His
Yeah.
name is Martin
Yeah,
Freeman,
indeed.
isn't it? But they're trying to create this. It's a British brand,
Right.
and some of the adverts.
He's very British. Isn't
yeah, they're just that horrible British humour where you just think that's crap, but you do laugh at it. That's what they're trying to go for. They're trying to go for that.
he? Dad jokes.
Yeah, dad jokes.
Right.
Is
I don't
there
know anything about
more?
them.
Is there anything more stereotypical British than bad jokes that you
Rubbish
just
puns
want to
and
laugh
stuff.
at?
Yeah.
So that's the sort of thing they're going for, and there's sort of 6 prongs of their strategy, from
It's a lot of
customer
prongs.
services through to actually getting the network coverage up, to actually improving the network.
Okay.
And he was just quite honest. He was like,
Yeah, it seemed to be. And yeah, I mean, I quite like when CEOs just go, yeah, no, we haven't been all that. I don't try and gloss over it too much. I published
It was rubbish when I wasn't in charge, yeah.
It's much better now.
I published an interview with the CEO of a company called Synchronos that I did at my World Congress, and it was an intriguing one for me because I'd last year written quite a long sort of investigative piece on some of the weird stuff that had gone on there, and again I had to give him a positive write up because he was just sort of honest. He was blunt. He was like, yeah, this is the gig. And I think fair enough for us journalists. If someone seems to be being honest and they're going, look, honestly, I'm putting things in place, and it's onwards and upwards, then I think, it remains to be seen. They've got to actually.
So I think this is the
do it.
point. I think this is the point. Nick Jeffrey's been in that job for
2 years now.
right, and are things better? Has he made a difference?
So if you look at,
I think the answer is yes.
yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at the NPS score, the Net Promoter Score. So I got their team to send through what their Net Promoter Score was in February of this year, last year, and the year before, and it goes from -1, so 0
Yeah.
is seen as average. Anything
Okay.
above is good.
You're doing all
Anything
right.
above 50 is supposed to be exceptional.
People are evangelising
Yeah.
about you.
Anything in minus numbers is bad.
Yeah.
And it's gone from -1, and then last year I think it was +7, and this year it's +20.
It's all right.
So that's one metric which is going the right way.
Yeah.
Ofcom has just released stats where Ofcom believe that Vodafone has the best coverage in the UK for voice.
Oh yeah, I remember that was a little while back.
It's about a week ago.
All right. Well, well, there was one. There was
long
one a few
time in
months ago where
Scotswold.
they did that because I remember they overtook. Maybe it was not Ofcom. Maybe it was
Yeah.
a different measurer.
But then apparently their performance figures are up, and then there was another story about their complaints are down as
Yeah.
well.
Again, from a high starting point.
yeah. So it's all going in the right
Yeah,
direction.
fair
So
enough,
it does seem
fair
to be
enough.
working.
Here's what I like about this Jeffrey bloke. He says, that doesn't work. I don't like that. I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And then he does something
Actually
about
does it. Yeah.
He actually does something about
Well,
it.
that's
Fair
what.
play to the lad.
And he's got a really interesting choice in favourite films.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What is his favourite film?
He's got 2 favourite films. I'll share one now. We'll share With Nail and I as one of them.
Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, I wonder how much inspiration he gets from that. Do you think? Do you think he ever sparks up a Camberwell carrot in the office?
I think that could be the starting point for the next conversation with the CEO of Vodafone UK, accompanied by 24 PR people.
Yes. And some coppers.
Icebreaker,
Yeah. And you're not going to tell us the other one?
No, we'll save that for another time.
All right, we'll save that for the next time you come on and talk about
be continued.
fixed line.
It's not because I can't remember, it's because it's
like to-
even more interesting.
Like to keep your cards close to your chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think fair enough there. I mean, one thing I did notice, which is probably a drop in the ocean, but a story I read today about Which, where they went and did some sort of mystery shopper stuff, and Vodafone didn't do so well. But that was on the broadband stuff, and a lot of that Martin Freeman stuff's broadband. They seem to be going quite big on their
No.
broadband.
It's if you actually have a look at all the adverts,
I'm just thinking of the latest one with that spaceship docking one. That was a
Yeah,
broadband.
but I mean the majority of those. So I embedded one into the story. So I actually spent about 20 minutes looking at these, and they are proper. Some of them are really funny. Like you look at it and you think that's crap, and you have a laugh. But most of them are about mobile. So a lot about their roaming.
Right.
Their
But they're
roam
just
from
at the
home
start
thing.
of their fixed broadband, sort of journey, really.
Peterborough was announced yesterday.
Yeah.
To beat my own chest, I predicted that.
He did call it. Fair play to the lad.
But so I think 6-8 months ago, he was saying, I'm fed up with working with OpenReach, need to find a different way to do it. And then sure enough, I think as predicted by quite a few people, they've teamed up with City Fibre, and now they're going for it.
Yeah.
And this City Fibre infrastructure is exactly what I was talking about. It's fibre, new fibre, all the way into cities, right to the edge, allowing different companies to be able to use it. Vodafone, I think, is that's a good partnership for Vodafone to have, because that is going to be a decent bedrock for whatever they do with 5G in the UK.
Yeah.
I really like it just primarily because there's no caveats to it. If you like Vodafone and City Fibre, so City Fibre have got the fibre spine in a lot of these cities.
Yeah.
And Vodafone has said, as part of this initiative, or the pair has said, we're not looking for market demand. We're not looking for sign-ups. We're not looking for deposits. It's a build it and they will come attitude, which is great. I love it.
Because Vodafone is going to need that fibre in all those areas.
Anyway.
No, but I mean, like when
for the mid-haul and backhaul for its small cells.
But
so now they're building the retail broadband story on top of the infrastructure that's going to be transport for their 5G.
But what I mean is they're trenching all the streets as well. So it's not like Virgin Media, where Virgin Media, for instance, if they would go out to this, this street in Wandsworth, they would have to get 40% off the street to agree to get Virgin Media before they micro-trench it. Whereas Vodafone and City Fibre are micro-trenching every street,
Micro-trench.
and then they're selling the services afterwards. So it's I quite like it. It's
tiny trench.
It's that
more of a groove.
Well, it's more of an interesting approach to telco.
Yeah, it's taking the initiative.
You're selling services. You're not promising the prospect of selling services.
That's good, but I think you two are agreeing with each other. Ray's saying, and they're making a virtue out of necessity, because sooner or later they're looking facts in the face. Sooner or later they're going to have to do this stuff, so they might as well crack on with it. And presumably you'd be happy if everyone adopted an attitude more in that direction of just getting on with it.
Get on with it with a decent business model. And the business model comes from 5G, and they're building a retail broadband story on top of the requirements for 5G.
The one area I do think is quite clever from Vodafone, and it's not really clever, but it's worth pointing out, is that they're not spending the money on fibre. It is the fibre spine is being funded by City Fibre.
I think they've chipped in though, haven't they?
Not that much.
All right.
I think the vast majority of the expense in actually laying the fibre is being done by City Fibre.
Okay.
So it's
Vodafone's a great anchor tenant to enable City Fibre to raise the funds to build the network. Then City Fibre will have the network and then be able to sell capacity on that network to multiple tenants.
The prospects having that sort of like an underwriting sort of Vodafone as a partner on top to sell for the go-to-market strategy,
Yeah.
I think that makes the City Fibre investment case a lot more secure. But I think Vodafone and Pado are an absolute winner. And
If
they
we were in
said-
the city in the late 80s, we'd call this a win-win,
Yeah.
and then have champers.
and anyone who has a fibre
Let's do
network,
just that.
anyone who has a fibre network, Nick Jeffries said that he would be open to future partnerships like this.
course.
So
Right.
if you have a fibre network and you want to partner up with Vodafone, give Nick a ring.
And the next thing they want is the street furniture.
Yes.
Well,
It is.
The cabinets.
Give me
Who
your
doesn't?
lamppost.
give me your lampposts and your decaying mattresses in King's Cross. That's not what they mean by street furniture, is it? Okay, on that sort of ridiculous note, I think we'll wrap it up there as we're running out of time. And Ray, you've got all sorts of important things to do, I'm sure. Me and Jamie don't. Okay.
Well, I do. You don't.
I think the
all right,
inference,
only-
where,
just
the
me
inference there was that I don't.
Right. Well, it seems that I'm the only one who hasn't got important stuff. Jamie's got phones to look at. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. Make sure you join us for the next one.